I'm first up, and you're looking at me thinking I'm going to go on for hours. I'm a Liberal Democrat. You're a captive audience. Why wouldn't I? But I was asked to say a few words about blockchain to start off with, and a project we're looking at using blockchain. And I think it's quite funny because of the House of Lords did a report. It was the Economic Affairs Committee looking at blockchain, and I think it was particularly House of Lords. They went through in great depth about it, they discussed it, and they said, well, blockchain might be a good idea, but we don't really understand where it's going or how you regulate it or what's going to be happening over the next couple of years. And I think that's one of the interesting positions. I believe that blockchain is a technological solution for a lot of problems. Not for everything, but there's a lot out there which we can actually do through technology. But I do find it interesting that regulators take a long time to catch up with what's happening in the financial community and what's actually happening on the ground. Sometimes that's a good thing, because the last thing you want is people making laws about things they don't understand or can't control. Anyway, but enough about Brexit. I got involved in blockchain actually by mistake with Omar, because I've been working on batteries. So we're talking about the hot new things. Batteries in buildings is going to be the next big technology coming forward. But one of the funny issues around sticking large batteries in buildings is it makes all the sense in the world, except the finances don't add up at the moment. So what we want to do now is, we've got a big problem in this country, is that we will have blackouts before too long. Everybody's saying, no, it's not going to happen, but we haven't built enough power stations, and we're closing power stations down. Now, I'm quite a stupid person, but the more power stations you close down doesn't mean you actually have the power when you need it. They can do a lot on the grid, but they're going to have a problem. So we need to find a way of actually shifting the load where we've got excess power at off-peak times and using it at peak times. And we can stick batteries into buildings of 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt in hospitals, down to 5 kilowatt in people's houses, that could actually take those buildings off the grid at times. And therefore, instead of spending money expensively on generation, you would actually spend it on paying people to actually not draw power off the grid. Now that sounds great, but there is no financial mechanism as yet to do that. So what we've actually looked at is, I've been working for 18 months and finally found the right people in Alexon, which is part of National Grid. And there is a thing called balancing mechanism units. And a balancing mechanism unit is a amount of money paid per megawatt hour if you reduce the amount of charge you're taking from the grid. Now, it's exactly the same rate as you would pay somebody to actually generate that power. And peak time generation is very, very expensive indeed. So the second problem we had was, well, that's great, but batteries are behind the meters, so how do you work out how much you pay them? So the next thing we've sorted out, and we've through the Decentralized Energy Trading Association, which has now been formed, is that body will become the self-regulator. It will actually put the meters, the fiscal meters, on the batteries themselves. That means that the batteries themselves, everything they actually use, can be traded. Now that means that you actually change the batteries from, say, a hospital having to spend £500,000 on a 1 megawatt battery, to somebody else owning the battery, somebody else trading with the battery, someone else operating the battery, and everybody can get their money from selling the balancing mechanism units. Now, this system obviously needs a blockchain solution. And blockchain works because every single trade can be undertaken with clarity of where it was and who pays for it. So we're going to be using a token system to run this. Now, the Decentralized Energy Energy Trading Association is actually going to issue a license to a blockchain provider to actually act for the next 5 years as the platform for this, which is quite fun. It's actually looking at a blockchain solution, which the regulator, Ofgem, BEIS, and Alexon has signed up to. So we're actually looking at a blockchain solution that most of them hadn't heard of 6 weeks ago. Actually, within the next couple of weeks, acting as almost the monopoly platform. Anybody can trade on it or not. Now, I could go on for hours about this, but I'll lose the audience, because I'm always told, If you speak them for more than 4 minutes, people just look at you. Nothing goes in. So I'll stop on that, but I would just, the reason I get so excited about this is when people talk about batteries, they don't realize the capacity that we now have. By 2020, we think we can stick 1,000 1-megawatt batteries in 1,000 different buildings, and we reckon there's over 10,000 buildings you could stick a megawatt battery in. But that's 1,000 megawatt hours, which is almost the equivalent of a small nuclear power station. So imagine you've got the capacity of sticking 1,000 megawatts in at peak at 1 hour duration. That is a hell of a lot of load to be able to stick in stressed areas to actually take off the grid. So it's going to be an interesting solution. And on the back of that, I've talked to 3 funds who are saying, now we want to invest in batteries. So from a conceptual, we want batteries, to finding the financial solution and using blockchain as the methodology, suddenly I think you're going to see a completely different way of how power is used and sold on the grid. And that's what I love about new technology, even if, of course, other members of the House of Lords don't understand it. So, thank you very much.